Hey there, drowsy historian here. Tonight you're not a noblewoman, you're not a suffragette, you're not even a tragic heroine in lace and pearls. You're something far more invisible. You're a harlot. Not the velvet-draped kind in the fancy bordellos, with champagne and piano music. No, you're the kind who wakes up on a stained mattress in a crib that smells like mildew and regret. You sell your body for coins, your time for crumbs, and your dignity. Well, that's long gone. Your name changes depending on who's paying, and your worth changes depending on how sick you look that day. No one writes novels about your kind. No one carves your name in stone. So before your clients come knocking, your stomach starts growling, and your lungs start coughing up something unpleasant. Do me a favour. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. If you want ad-free audio of these episodes, early access, or just want to support the show, there's a Patreon link in the description. But for now, lie back, breathe deep, try not to think too hard about what's crawling under your pillow. Let's begin. You wake to the smell before the light. Thick, sour air clings to your skin like a wet rag, heavy with piss, sweat, old perfume, and the sweet, sick rot of whatever died behind the wallboards last week. A rat rustles near your ankle, not frantically, just enough to make it known that this bed is shared. You don't flinch, there's no point. You're too tired to scream, and too familiar with the feeling of tiny paws on your legs to waste the energy pretending to care. The mattress beneath you is thin and collapsing, soaked through from a combination of last night's effort and this morning's humidity. The sheets stick to your thighs, damp with something that might have been spilled gin or someone else's spit, and honestly, you'd prefer not to know. Your head throbs with that particular kind of ache that feels like someone's using your skull as a laundry mangle. Behind your eyes, everything pulses in time with your heartbeat. You'd blame the drink, but you can't remember if you drank or if the sickness is just from going too long without. There's a chamber pot under the bed. You can smell it from here, sharp, acrid, and beginning to ferment in the heat. It's full. It's been full since sometime yesterday, but you never got around to emptying it. And now the thought of picking it up, carefully, always carefully, and carrying it down the stairs to slosh out into the alley seems like more effort than you're worth. So you don't. You just lie there, staring at the ceiling where the plaster's beginning to sag, in a spot that looks increasingly like it's going to fall directly onto your face. There's a sound from outside, a carriage wheel creaking, a baby crying, someone shouting in Creole. This part of Storyville never really sleeps, but it does get quiet in that fragile hour just before the sun breaks over the rooftops. The heat hasn't yet fully sunk its teeth in, but it's already circling you, sticky and patient. Your bare legs tangle in the sheets, one foot knocking over an empty bottle. You don't know if it was yours. Probably. Could have been left behind by someone who didn't pay. You've stopped keeping track. You try to sit up. Your stomach lurches, then quiets. There's a sore spot on your lower back where the skin's starting to crack again. The ointment helps when you have it, which you don't. The madam says you can buy some out of next week's earnings, which is to say, she'll overcharge you and take it out before you see a single coin. You'd complain, but you've seen what happens to girls who complain. One got locked in a back room for 3 days until she came crawling out apologising. One got tossed into the street in nothing but a shift and was back working the alley before nightfall. You check your money stash. It's under a brick near the stove, wrapped in a stocking with a hole in the toe. Inside, 3 coins, a broken brooch, and a button you've been meaning to sew back on your only decent dress. It's not enough for rent, not enough for food, definitely not enough for laudanum, though that's starting to sound better than breakfast. Not that you'll get either. You owe the butcher's boy a meal, and the bottle man a favour, and you're behind on both. Your dress from yesterday is draped over the back of a chair. You wore it 3 nights running. It smells like men, the cheap cologne kind and the cheaper sweat kind. There's a tear near the hem, and the lace on the bodice is unravelling in a way that makes you look careless, which you are, but it's still bad for business. You consider trying to sponge it off, then remember you don't have water. The tap in the hallway runs brown most mornings and hasn't done more than wheeze in days. You look around the room and try to convince yourself it's a life. There's a cracked mirror nailed to the wall at an angle that makes everything look slightly wilted. A brush with 3 teeth left. A chipped enamel basin that smells faintly of mould and rosewater. The floorboards creak like they're in pain every time you move. On one windowsill, there's a cigarette butt someone left behind. You pick it up, sniff it, and tuck it behind your ear. You might want it later. You might want something to hold between your fingers that isn't flesh. Somewhere upstairs, another girl is laughing too loud, too fast. It's not a real laugh. It's the kind you make when you want the man to think you're enjoying yourself, or at least to hurry up. You think it's Louise. She came down from Memphis last spring with a black eye and a suitcase full of lace. Now she mostly sleeps all day and limps in the mornings. You've stopped asking questions. Questions lead to answers, and answers lead to caring. And caring is a liability when no one lasts long. You swing your legs off the bed and immediately regret it. The floor is cold and sticky, and your knee gives a small traitorous pop as you stand. You catch your reflection in the mirror and sigh. There are bruises on your neck you don't remember getting, and your lips are dry enough to crack if you smile. Not that you plan on doing that anytime soon. Your eyes are bloodshot, and your hair has matted into something halfway between a braid and a nest. You look like a woman at the end of something. You always do. Outside the window, the sky's beginning to lighten. Not quite sunrise, but the blue is softening. A few drunk men still stagger past the gate, laughing at nothing, calling to no one in particular. One of them pisses against a wall across the street. Another sings off-key about a girl named Rosie. You lean your forehead against the glass, letting the cool touch your skin for a second. It's the only cool thing you'll feel today. There's a knock at the door downstairs. Sharp, quick, businesslike. Could be a client. Could be the madam. Could be a constable. Could be someone who wants you to lie, smile, moan, and pretend he's the only one. Either way, you'd better go. You take a breath. It's shallow and tastes of mildew, and then you reach for the dress. Do you know better than to try for cleanliness? Clean is a fantasy, something the women in Garden District parlours and perfume advertisements pretend exists. What you aim for, on a good day, is tolerable. Tolerable enough not to send a client gagging out the door. Tolerable enough not to get complaints that reach the madam's ears. Tolerable enough that when you open your legs, the first thing they feel isn't revulsion. It's a low bar, but you still stumble trying to meet it. There's a communal basin in the yard behind the cribs. It's chipped and ringed with old scum, and most days it's occupied by at least one half-dressed girl trying to sponge off the night before. You take your place beside it, nodding to the others without saying much. Everyone's too tired for talk. A few rinse blood from their thighs. One has a black eye swelling purple. Another's scraping something from her scalp that might be lice or worse. No one makes eye contact. You're all here for the same reason, and none of it's noble. The rag you use smells like it's been boiled in armpits and left in a drain. You dip it into the basin and start wiping yourself down, wincing as the rough fabric scrapes over yesterday's bruises and the tiny cuts that never seem to close. You've got sores now, small ones, along your thighs and under your breasts. The doctor at the district clinic says they're nothing, just friction or heat or maybe a touch of the rash. But you know what that means? You've seen it before, the itching, the stinging, the look in a girl's eyes when she starts scratching too hard. You don't ask for salve. You wouldn't be able to pay for it, even if you did. You brought a shard of soap with you, stolen from a parlour house discard pile last week. It's gritty, full of sharp bits like sand, and smells faintly floral in the way wilted funeral flowers do. It lathers if you scrub hard enough, though the suds turn grey as soon as they touch your skin. You run it under your arms between your legs, down your back. It stings. You hiss through your teeth and keep going. If you don't scrub hard, you'll never get rid of the smell. If you scrub too hard, you'll open something that's already threatening to bleed. Balance, as always, is everything. When the basin's water runs low, you top it off with a bucket you filled earlier from the horse trough near the alley's edge. You made sure to dip from the side that didn't have hay or floating muck. The horses drink there. You do too sometimes, when you can't get a cup of clean water and don't trust what comes out of the taps. You pour it slowly into the basin and hope the others aren't watching too closely. Technically, you're not supposed to use that trough. Technically, a lot of things aren't allowed. But no one enforces anything unless it inconveniences a man. You don't bathe your hair, not today. It takes too long to dry and you've already got mildew creeping under your collar from last week's rain. You settle for running damp fingers through it, pulling out the worst tangles with a comb that lost most of its teeth years ago. The result is less styled and more not actively matted, but that'll do. The kind of men who pay for you aren't looking for elegance. They're looking for convenience, sometimes cruelty, never conversation. After you rinse, you shake out your dress and pull it over your damp skin. It clings unpleasantly in all the wrong places. You smooth the bodice, adjust the laces, tug the hem down as far as it'll go. It used to be cream-coloured. Now it's more of a dingo with aspirations. The lace at the collar is wilted, but if you pull your shoulders back and tilt your chin just so, it still creates the illusion of delicacy. Illusion is everything. It's the only currency you've got that isn't running out. You step back inside your room to apply what you generously refer to as finishing touches. There's a tiny mirror hanging by a bent nail on the wall. In it, you see a version of yourself that looks older than you remember. Hollow cheeks, chapped lips, one eye slightly more swollen than the other. You think you might have bumped it on the bed frame last night. Or maybe it was the man who slapped you for laughing. Hard to keep track. You wet your fingers and pinch some colour into your cheeks. Bite your lips to make them redder. Then you reach for your final weapon. The perfume. It isn't yours, not really. It was half used when you found it in a trash pile behind Mahogany Hall, and you've been rationing it like medicine ever since. The label's gone, but the scent is unmistakable. Violets with a sharp undertone of something musky and medicinal. The kind of perfume meant for women who wear silk gloves and sit on velvet cushions. You dab it behind your ears, at your wrists, between your breasts. Then you breathe it in. You smell like violets in heat. It doesn't help. Not really. The scent just mixes with the soap and the sweat and the faint tang of whatever your last client left behind. But it's a mask, and sometimes that's enough. When men lean in close, they'll smell something expensive, or at least expensive adjacent. And maybe they'll look past the cracks in your skin and the bruises on your thighs. Maybe they'll imagine you're one of the better girls, the kind with a private room and clean sheets. Maybe you'll even imagine it too for a minute, just long enough to get through the next one. Downstairs, someone calls your name. You don't recognise the voice. That's either a good sign or a very bad one. You tuck the perfume back into its hiding place behind the baseboard, straighten your shoulders, and step out into the hallway. The floorboards creak like they're mourning something. Probably you. You're not clean, but you're clean enough. That'll have to do. There's a rhythm to the morning trade, and it's not romantic. No gaslight shimmer. No slow jazz curling through the air. It starts with a knock, low, quick, and uncertain. Men who come this early don't want to be seen. They've got wives, jobs, reputations to keep intact. They want you to open the door, do what's needed, and forget their face by the time the latch clicks shut again. Most of the time, you do. Not out of grace, just necessity. The first one this morning is a dockhand. Heavy hands, sour breath, boots that leave streaks of mud on your floor. He doesn't speak much, just grunts and mutters, his eyes never quite meeting yours. He smells of fish, rust and liquor, the kind of man who'd apologise for hitting you, only if it left a mark his boss might notice. You motion toward the bed, and he drops his trousers without preamble. The whole thing takes less than 10 minutes. You make the right noises when he expects them. Turn your head away when he starts sweating, and let your thoughts drift to the cracked ceiling above. There's a spider up there, making a web between the beams. You envy it. Afterward, he throws 2 coins on the table and leaves without a word. You don't count them until the door closes. One's real, one's wooden, painted silver. You sigh, pocket the real one, and tuck the fake under a loose floorboard with the others. You've got a collection now, a small graveyard of false promises and vanished men. The next is a regular, Mr. LeBlanc. Mid-40s, always wears a tie, always brings cheap whiskey and a sad story. His wife's cold, his job's thankless. The world doesn't understand him. You've heard it all. He wants you to listen. Not too closely, just enough to nod at the right moments. He's not unkind, not really. Just entitled in the way men like him are, expecting comfort on demand, like warmth from a stove. He kisses your forehead and tells you you're better than this. You smile because you know he likes that. He doesn't mean it, and you don't believe it, but it's a game you've both learned to play. He takes longer. He always does. He wants tenderness but has no idea how to ask for it. So he fumbles his way through something that feels like affection but tastes like obligation. You hold him afterward, mostly so he won't start crying again. He leaves the whiskey this time, which is a mercy. You take a swig and let it burn down your throat. It's not good, but it's strong enough to scrape the taste of him from your mouth. There's a lull around mid-morning, the gap between the early risers and the lunch hour gamblers. You use the time to wash your face, re-pin your hair, and lie flat on the bed with your eyes open. Not resting, just existing. You listen to the sounds around you. Someone arguing in the hallway, a girl laughing too loud in the next room, footsteps coming and going on the stairs. The city breathes in patterns. So do you. That's all you can manage some days. A third knock, younger this time, maybe a soldier. You open the door to find a boy barely old enough to shave, fumbling with his belt like he's trying to convince himself he knows what he's doing. He's flushed, sweating, talking too fast. Says he's never done this before. You nod like you believe him, though his eyes are already darting around the room like he's scouting for exits. He wants you to be kind. He wants you to be gentle, but he also wants to finish quickly, to get it over with, so he can pretend it never happened. You guide him through it, soft-voiced and distant, as though reading instructions from a manual. When it's done, he doesn't meet your eyes, just drops a crumpled note on the table and mutters something about catching a train. You nod again and close the door behind him. You unfold the bill. It's torn and half the ink is smeared, but it'll pass if you're quick. You tuck it into your stocking and sit on the edge of the bed, rubbing your temples. You can already feel the start of a headache blooming behind your right eye. Not every client is rough. Some are just clumsy, some are cold, some smell so strongly of soap and aftershave that it makes you dizzy. Others reek of garlic, cigars, and the sea. You've had men who wanted to be worshipped, others who wanted to be punished. A few just wanted to talk, but most just want fast, cheap, and quiet. They don't want intimacy. They want transaction. You learned that early. You've gotten good at reading their type before they even speak. The ones who ask your name never mean it. The ones who say you remind them of someone are usually lying. The worst are the ones who linger. The ones who sit on the edge of your bed and start telling stories about their childhood or their dreams or their mother. Those men always come back, and they always ask for more than you're willing to give. You've developed tricks. Fake a cough, and they'll often take it as a sign to leave. Fake a moan at the right moment, and they'll finish faster. If one looks like he might get violent, you compliment his hands. It sounds absurd, but it works more often than not. Most men don't want to hurt someone who flatters them. Not unless they think you're lying. And even then, only if they feel insulted. It's a delicate balance. Everything is. By the time noon drags itself over the rooftops, you've had 4 men and a half bottle of whiskey. Your thighs ache, your head's spinning. You haven't eaten, but the idea of food turns your stomach. You lie down again, not to sleep, just to flatten yourself into something that feels less human. You stare at the wall. There's a nail sticking out at just the right angle to catch your dress when you walk past. You keep meaning to hammer it in. You probably never will. Downstairs, the madame is shouting about something. Probably broken furniture or unpaid tabs. Someone's crying in the hallway. Someone else is laughing too loudly. Somewhere out there, the good girls of New Orleans are drinking tea on shady porches, fanning themselves and talking about the weather. You think about that for a moment, then let the thought fall away. Another knock. Time to start again. In the sliver of shade beside the cribs, just where the alley wall blocks out the worst of the afternoon sun, the girls gather. Not all of them, not at once. Just a shifting collection of limbs and dresses, smoke and silence, whoever happens to be between clients, or taking a moment to let the sweat dry. You join them when you can, though no one ever really joins. You just sit near each other, backs against the brick, skirts pulled up to the knees, waiting for the heat to break or the next knock to come. You're not friends, you're barely familiar, but there's something about surviving the same filth that breeds a kind of shared understanding. You don't talk about your pasts. No one asks what you did before Storyville. The answers are always too messy, too sad, or too stupid. Instead, you trade small things. Cigarettes, hairpins, bits of bread, a splash of perfume swiped from a richer girl's vanity. Sometimes a story, if it's funny. Sometimes a warning, if it's not. Don't take the one with the limp, someone mutters, eyes flicking toward the edge of the street. He likes to bite. Another girl nods without speaking, lips pursed, one hand resting on a bruised thigh like punctuation. Someone else laughs, a dry little sound with no joy in it. Better biting than choking, she says, pulling a scarf higher around her neck. You don't ask what's underneath. You've seen enough purple rings and broken capillaries to imagine. The stoop becomes its own sort of theatre, a place for posing, leaning, pretending. Some girls flirt with passers-by, hoping to pull a little business early. Others lounge with the indifference of queens, daring the world to look away. You sit quietly most days, not out of shyness, but out of preservation. The ones who talk too much usually disappear first. It's not superstition, it's pattern. You've seen it more times than you can count. One day she's sitting next to you, lighting a cigarette with shaky fingers, talking about some man who swears he'll take her away to Biloxi. The next day, her crib is locked, her things are gone, and no one can quite say where she went. Maybe she left with him. Maybe he left without her. Maybe she got sick. Maybe she just stopped waking up. The madame says she ran off. The girls say nothing at all. There's always someone new to take her place. Wide-eyed, pretty, too clean for comfort. She'll last a few weeks, maybe longer if she learns quick. You watch them come in with dresses that still have buttons and shoes that match, and you watch them fade like wallpaper in the sun. First the colour drains, then the hope, then the rest. You remember when you were new. You didn't talk to the other girls either, not at first. You thought they were cold. They weren't. They were smart. Now you know better. You keep your secrets like coins, close, hidden, not to be spent unless you're desperate. You've got a few tucked away still. A name you never use. A scar you lie about. A night you've locked in a room at the back of your mind that no one else is allowed to enter. Still, sometimes you talk. Late in the day, when the sun turns everything gold and the heat makes everyone a little slow, a little loose. You pass a cigarette around. Watch the smoke curl like lace into the still air. Someone tells a joke about a preacher who paid extra to cry during it. Someone else talks about a client who sang hymns the whole time. You laugh because it's better than screaming. You laugh because tomorrow you might not be here too. Some of the girls carry blades, tiny things tucked into garters or sewn into hems. You've got one too, a rusted little penknife you found in a dead man's coat pocket 3 months ago. It's not sharp, but it'll do. You sleep with it under your pillow. When someone gets too rough, you reach for it, even if you don't use it. The threat is often enough. Not always, but often. You knew a girl who slashed a man across the cheek after he tried to strangle her. She said he didn't even bleed right, just sort of oozed. She left town the next day. Word was he had friends in the constabulary. No one knows if she made it out. Probably not. No one makes it out. Not really. Even the ones who leave still carry the stink of it in their bones. Every now and then someone from one of the high houses comes by. One of Mahogany Hall's girls, maybe, with a parasol and clean gloves. She doesn't stop. Just walks past slow enough for everyone to see the silk of her stockings and the way her hair shines. You can feel the heat of it behind your eyes. Not jealousy exactly, just recognition. That could have been you maybe, if you'd started earlier, if your teeth were straighter, if you hadn't gotten sick so young, if your first madam hadn't sold you to the man with the gold tooth. If. But you're here, on the stoop, in a dress that smells like other people, with your knees drawn up and your skin sticking to the brick. You're here, passing a cigarette that burns unevenly, waiting for the sun to go down and the real business to begin. You're here with the other girls, and that's all. You stand in line with your dress sticking to the backs of your knees and your mouth tasting of metal. It's too early for the sun to be this hot, and too late for any real sense of dignity. The women around you are quiet, some swaying a little, some blinking slow like their eyelids have grown too heavy to lift. No one wants to be here. No one has a choice. The district requires regular inspections. It's not about your health, it's about theirs. The paying men, the married men, the ones who think their money should guarantee immunity. The clinic smells like sweat, vinegar, and old flesh. You'd say it smells like death, but death would probably be cleaner. The waiting room is little more than a converted parlour, warped floorboards, cracked crown moulding, 2 wooden benches that creak under the weight of too many sick women trying not to touch each other. A fan clatters in the corner, spinning slowly enough to be more insulting than helpful. There's no privacy, just curtains pulled half-heartedly across open doorways. You hear everything. You see almost everything. Sometimes you wish you didn't. When they call your name, it's barely more than a grunt. The nurse doesn't look up from her clipboard. You follow her past a curtain into a small room that smells sharper, like alcohol and rust. The doctor doesn't greet you. He doesn't have to. You're not a person to him. You're a task, a possible contamination source, a walking hazard in a dress that cost less than his gloves. He gestures for you to undress, not even turning his back while you pull up your skirt and slip your arms out of the bodice. The paper sheet he hands you is thin and already damp from someone else's fear. You sit on the edge of the table, legs dangling, trying not to wince when the metal of the stirrups touches your skin. You stare at the ceiling, where a fly is lazily circling a stain that's probably older than you are. The doctor prods, pokes, squints. His breath smells like coffee and tobacco. He doesn't speak, unless it's to tell you to shift. You've lost count of how many times you've been through this routine. Your body has learned how to go numb in all the right places. Your mind too. After a few minutes, he makes a noise that might be approval or disappointment. It's hard to tell. He writes something on your chart in hurried, jagged letters. You don't ask what it says. You know better. If you're lucky, it means you get another week before you're due back. If not, you'll be quarantined, stuck in a locked ward where the windows don't open and the beds smell like bleach and blood. You've heard the screams through those walls. You'd rather die in your own bed. You get dressed again, pulling your clothes on with practiced efficiency. You notice a fresh sore near your hip bone, just under where your corset sits. You didn't feel it before. You feel it now. It's the size of a penny, angry red around the edges, weeping just enough to stick your underthings to your skin. You don't mention it. Mentioning it means being noticed, Being noticed means being marked. You don't want that. Not yet, not today. Back in the waiting room, another girl is shaking. Her lips are blue, and her hands won't stay still. She's whispering to herself. Something rhythmic, like a prayer or a curse. You've seen it before, the late stages, when the sores start to spread inside the mouth, when the joints swell, when the brain begins to melt down like wax under a flame. The madames say it's hysteria. The doctors say it's nerves. You know it's syphilis. Everyone does. They just don't want to say the word out loud, like naming it gives it more power than it already has. Once you watched a girl tear off all her clothes in the middle of Basin Street, howling like a dog at the moon. She'd been sweet, soft-spoken, barely 17, thought she'd make enough money to send her little brother to school. She ended up wandering the district barefoot for 2 days before they dragged her away. You heard she died in a county hospital, her fingernails ripped out, and her eyes milky white. No one claimed the body. No one could afford to. The treatment, if you can call it that, is mercury. Ointments, injections, tablets. It burns going in, burns worse coming out. Some girls lose their hair, some lose teeth. You've lost pieces of memory. Small gaps in time you can't account for. You chalk it up to stress, but deep down you wonder. You felt the tremors starting in your fingers sometimes, late at night when the room is quiet and you've had nothing stronger than tea. That's how it begins, they say, the trembling. You collect your inspection slip and leave without a word. The paper is stamped with a date and a note. Fit for work. You laugh at that, quietly, bitterly. Fit for work. Like a mule or a machine. As long as you're not bleeding out of the wrong places or raving in the street, you're good to go. No one checks your mind. No one asks if you've slept more than 3 hours at a time. They just want to be sure you won't rot on top of someone important. Outside, the air feels thicker somehow, like disease itself is floating through the heat. You know it's in the walls, in the linens, in the sweat of the men who never get checked because they carry the money, not the infection. You've had clients with obvious lesions, wheezing coughs, skin that flakes like sawdust. They don't get turned away. They get discounts. Sometimes they get your name wrong and ask for someone who's been dead 3 months. You let them. It's easier that way. You tuck the paper into your bodice and head back toward your crib. The girls in the yard look up as you pass. No one says anything. No one has to. You nod once and one of them nods back. You're still upright. Still earning. That's all that matters here. For now. You know your turn is coming. You just don't know how soon. Hunger isn't an event anymore. It's a state. Like humidity. Like pain. You wake up with it, walk with it, sleep with it. It's not the sharp kind either. Not anymore. It's gone dull like a rock that's been in your gut too long to cut. But today, it's louder than usual. You haven't eaten since yesterday morning. And even then it was half a heel of bread and a spoonful of lard you couldn't swear wasn't crawling with something. There's a bakery 3 streets over that doesn't ask too many questions. The owner's wife pretends she doesn't know who you are, and the owner pretends he doesn't take payment in things that don't come with receipts. You slip around back, knock twice, and wait. He answers the door, with flour on his apron and a smile that tries to look friendly, but doesn't quite make it to his eyes. You ask if he's got any rolls. He asks what you've got. You tell him 10 minutes and no talking. He agrees. It takes less than that. He gives you a cloth bundle when it's done. 4 rolls, slightly stale, and a wedge of something that used to be cheese. You thank him even though you hate yourself for doing it. Pride doesn't feed you. You learnt that early. You walk to the edge of the alley, perch on a crate, and open the bundle slowly, like it's something sacred. The bread is dry and tough, but it smells real, like yeast and heat, and something solid. You tear one in half and start to chew. You eat slowly, savouring it the way you imagine rich women savour fine wine. You close your eyes between bites and let your tongue linger on the crumbs. You've learned how to make food last longer by pretending it's more than it is. Pretending helps. Not much, but some. You finish the first roll, set the second aside for later, and nibble at the cheese. It's gone soft in the heat and has a sourness that curls in your nostrils, but you don't care. It's calories. That's what matters. A fly lands on your knuckles, then another. You don't brush them away. You've learned to share space with things that feed off you. The trick is not minding it, or at least pretending you don't. You rest your elbows on your knees and watch the street. There's a man arguing with a cart vendor, a dog pissing against a lamppost, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of a trumpet, sweet and slow, like it doesn't know it's being played in a city that's rotting underneath itself. You eat the third roll, even though you told yourself you'd save it. Your stomach overrides your better sense. You chew faster now, like it might be taken from you if you don't finish quick. It wouldn't be the first time. You've had men grab food off your plate mid-bite just to remind you where you stood. You've had girls swipe from your stash in the night because they thought you had more than they did. Everyone's starving. Just in different ways. The fourth roll you tear in half and tuck into your pocket. You'll need it later, when your hands are shaking and your lips have gone numb. You make sure to wrap it tight in the cloth, even though the edges are already going hard. You'll soak it in water if you have to. You've done worse. You look down at your fingers and notice a smear of grease and something darker under your nails. You lick it off without thinking. The bakery's not the worst trade you've made. At least he doesn't hit. At least he doesn't ask you to smile. At least he gives you food afterward. You've had men who didn't even pretend to pay. Men who left you bleeding, then told you to be grateful. You think about that while you chew the last of the cheese and wipe your hands on your skirt. Your mouth feels coated. You wish you had water. You'd settle for gin. There's a greasy spoon 2 doors down that sells stew for a few coins, but you haven't got any. You think about offering a quick job in the alley behind the cookhouse, but you're too full of bread and shame to manage that right now. You sit on the stoop instead, watching the line snake out the door. Labourers, errand boys, a few dockmen who probably slept under their carts. None of them look at you. None of them have to. They know what you are. You're marked even when you're sitting still. You rest your head against the wall and close your eyes for a moment. Not to sleep. Just to rest your jaw from chewing and your heart from beating. The sun is high now, and the heat presses down on your shoulders like a punishment. You feel your skin starting to prickle, sweat crawling down the back of your neck. The bread sits heavy in your belly, but not in a bad way. For now, you're not starving. That's something. Someone walks past and mutters a slur under their breath. You don't react. You're too used to it. You've been called worse by men who pay double for your time. You shift on the crate, flex your toes in your boots and wonder how long the food will hold. If you're lucky, you won't feel hungry again until evening. If you're lucky, you'll have another client before the gnawing returns. If you're lucky, you won't be so desperate tomorrow. The luck never lasts, though. Not here. Some men don't want sex, not really. They want proof. Proof that they can take something without being told no. That they can leave marks on a body and walk away without consequence. That their money buys silence, obedience, and blood if they ask for it. You've learned to spot them by the way they knock. Too hard, too fast, like they're angry before you even open the door. You can see it in their eyes. The hunger isn't for touch. It's for dominance. He was tall, not particularly strong, but mean in that quiet, smouldering way. The kind of man who doesn't shout, just waits for you to say the wrong thing. He hits you in the shoulder halfway through, not because you fought him, not because you said no, but because you made a face he didn't like. Just a twitch, a wince maybe, and his fist came down like a judgment. You didn't scream, you didn't move, you let him finish, and when he left, you lay on the floor, with your arm curled against your ribs, counting the throb like clock ticks. The bruising spread fast. You couldn't lift your arm for days. You thought about telling the madam. But then what? He might come back. And if he does, she'll still take his coin. Might even give him a discount. Men who pay to hit usually pay well. She'd tell you to be smarter next time, quieter, more agreeable. You didn't tell her. You just kept working with one arm limp at your side and told the clients you'd twisted it falling downstairs. Some nodded, Some laughed, none cared. Later that week, the constable made his usual rounds. He comes by every few days to collect his fee, not officially, of course. Officially, he's here to enforce decency and keep the district orderly. Unofficially, he wants 10% of whatever you've made, a drink if you've got one, and maybe a grope to remind you who's really in charge. If you refuse, he threatens to write you up for soliciting with impudence, which is a real charge in this city, if not a real crime. Enough charges, and they lock you up in parish prison, where the guards are worse than the men you serve now. This time, he was in a mood. Said someone had been complaining about noise. Said your kind brought nothing but trouble, an infection. You tried to hand over the coins, without meeting his eyes. He slapped them out of your hand, made you bend to pick them up. Said it was about respect. You smiled through your teeth, even when he pinched your chin hard enough to bruise. You know how to perform submission. You've had a lot of practice. By the time he left, your skin was crawling, and the pain in your shoulder was back full force. You went down to the alley, looking for something to dull it. That's where you saw Pascal. He leans against the same fence every night, arms crossed, smile wide, like he's selling miracles instead of poison. You don't like him. No one does. But he's got what you need. Laudanum, opium, something stronger, something newer. He calls it the dust, though you're not sure what it really is. Comes in a folded scrap of paper, pale grey, bitter on the tongue. You told him you didn't have coin. He looked you over. Slow, deliberate. Said he wasn't charging today. Said he liked your eyes. You didn't argue. You never do. You took the packet, tucked it into your bodice, and walked back to your crib with your heart thudding in your ears. You know better than to trust a gift like that. It always costs more later. But later didn't matter. Your arm ached. Your belly felt hollow. Your whole body buzzed with the dull hum of survival wearing thin. That night, you lit a candle, lay back on your bed, and unfolded the paper. The dust inside sparkled faintly in the flickering light. You hesitated only a second before licking your fingertip and dabbing it into the powder. The taste was bitter, metallic. It burned on your tongue, then slid down your throat like ice melting too fast. Within minutes, the pain softened. Your arm stopped throbbing. Your thoughts untangled like thread in warm water. You stared at the ceiling and felt, not good exactly, but gone. And that was enough. It's not your first time, probably not your last. You don't like losing control, but sometimes it's a relief not to have to feel anything. You tell yourself you won't make a habit of it, that you're stronger than that. But you've heard yourself say those things before. You've watched other girls follow that same path. First the laudanum, then the powders, then the little glass vials they'd hold like charms while they shivered under blankets in the middle of summer. You're not better than them, just behind. The bruises on your shoulder fade after a few days, but the ache lingers. So does the fear. Not of the men, not exactly. You're used to them. It's the uncertainty that gnaws at you. Who will it be next time? The quiet one with the stutter? The one who smells like cinnamon? The preacher who cries after? You never know. That's the worst part. Not the pain. The guessing. You start sleeping with your knife again, tucked under your pillow, handle cold against your palm. It's dull and mostly symbolic, but it makes you feel a little less helpless. You don't want to use it, but you'd rather die with it in your hand than with someone's fingers around your throat. And Pascal comes by more often now, smiling, asking how you liked his gift, telling you he's got more, stronger, better. You nod. You let him talk. You think about it more than you'd like. You know he'll want something in return soon, something you can't afford to give, but you're already starting to crave that feeling again. The quiet, the stillness, the disappearing. Some pain you can't avoid, some you choose, just to feel like you're still the one choosing. The sun's long gone, though you wouldn't know it from inside your room. The street lamps throw a weak yellow light through the slats in the shutters, streaking the walls with long bent shadows. You sit on the edge of your bed, dress wrinkled, bodice pulled halfway down, hair pinned back, not for style, but function. You're already tired, and the night hasn't even properly started. It never really ends either, just blurs from one man to the next, one evening into morning into dusk, until you've forgotten what it felt like to wake up without dreading the dark. From down the block you hear music drifting through the air, bright, brassy ragtime floating out from Mahogany Hall. A piano tinkles underneath the thrum of conversation, followed by laughter that rings too clear to be real. Glasses clink. A woman's voice sings in French, sweet and practiced. You close your eyes and try to picture what it must look like inside. Velvet settees, lace-trimmed robes, girls with powdered shoulders and scented wrists, the kind of women men take their hats off for. That isn't your world. You're 3 streets too cheap and $10 too poor to belong to that house. You wouldn't fit in even if you stole the dress and painted your teeth white. Your room is colder than it should be. The breeze sneaks in through the cracks in the window frame, brushing the back of your neck like fingers that haven't earned the right. You huddle under a threadbare shawl and sip something strong from a chipped glass. It burns all the way down, but it dulls your nerves, and that's the point. Somewhere in the hallway, footsteps echo. A man's voice barks something unintelligible. Then a door slams. You don't bother looking. You're not on the clock yet, not officially. The knock comes just past 10. 2 sharp taps, then one softer. You open the door and find a man swaying slightly, eyes glazed, clothes stained with salt and ale. Dock worker. He reeks of sweat and the river, the kind of smell that seeps into your sheets and doesn't leave. He grins at you, all teeth and bad breath, and slurs something that might be your name or someone else's. You step aside and let him in. You've learned not to ask questions. He fumbles with his trousers while you light the lamp. The flame flickers, throwing strange shapes on the walls, making your small room look even smaller. He sits on the bed with a thud, then lies back like he owns it. You go through the motions, pull your skirt up, kneel beside him, stroke his arm, whisper something that sounds encouraging. It doesn't work. He huffs, grunts, tries again. Nothing. He curses under his breath and turns on you. "You're broken," he snaps, shoving you away. "You've got no fire. You're cold as fish." You don't respond. You just sit back, rearrange your dress, and stare at a crack in the floor. He blames you, of course. They always do. Never mind the liquor on his breath or the fatigue in his limbs. If he can't finish, it must be your fault. You were too slow, too dry, too bored. You didn't inspire him. You didn't make him feel like a man. You've heard it all before. He doesn't hit you, just storms out muttering something about wasting his money. You don't even check to see if he left any. You know he didn't. You hear his boots stomp down the hall. Then the front door creak open and shut. Another ghost added to your ledger of unpaid nights. You clean up mechanically, straighten the covers, fold the shawl, pour yourself another drink. There's no one else scheduled, but that doesn't mean you're done. Walk-ins happen, last-minute regulars. Men who've had one too many and think you're prettier when their vision blurs. You dab some of the perfume behind your ears, just in case. You're almost out. You've been stretching the last of it for weeks. When it's gone, you're not sure what you'll use to mask the sourness. Through the wall you hear someone crying. A girl's voice, high and broken, sobbing into something soft. The sound rises and falls like a storm you can't see. You know who it is. Her name is Frances, maybe, or something close to that. She came 2 months ago from Baton Rouge, still plump and pink-cheeked, with a box full of dresses and a letter from her aunt. Now she barely leaves her room. You heard she got pregnant. You heard she tried to end it herself. You heard too much, and none of it helps. You don't go to her. You don't knock on the wall and ask if she's all right. You don't press your ear to the wood like you used to, when you still believed comfort was something you could give. She'll cry until she can't anymore, and then she'll lie still. And tomorrow she'll work, or she won't. Either way, the district won't notice, neither will the men. You lie back on your bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The music from Mahogany Hall has slowed. A waltz now, delicate and aching. You imagine a woman in a silk robe spinning under the glow of a chandelier, her heels clicking softly on polished floors. You wonder if she feels safe. Probably not. But maybe safer than you do. You've heard the high-class girls get doctors who don't smell like vinegar. Heard they eat real food. Heard their bruises fade faster. Outside, the wind picks up. You hear something rattle, a shutter maybe, or someone banging on a trash can. The night is noisy, always. Drunks, rats, horns in the distance. The city moves, even when you don't. Especially when you don't. You curl your legs under you and pull the shawl tighter. The room smells like sweat and whiskey and the river. You're too tired to care, too tired to cry. You don't even bother undressing. There might still be another knock. There's always another knock. The room is quiet, which is rare. No footsteps in the hallway. No laughter from downstairs. No shouting. No moaning. Not even the usual creak of the bed springs above you. Just silence, soft and strange. The kind that makes you think maybe, just maybe, the city has forgotten you for a moment. You don't move, you hardly breathe. You let it settle around you like something holy. Moonlight spills across the floorboards, pale and thin, like someone poured milk along the cracks in the wood. It catches on the chipped enamel of the wash basin, glows faintly against the edge of the mirror, stretches long fingers toward your bare feet. The light makes the room look cleaner than it is, softer. You pretend, for just a second, that you live somewhere else. That this is your room, not a rented space with a mattress full of strangers' memories, but a room you chose, with curtains you picked, with a lock that only you use. You lie back slowly, your body sore in the usual places, and tired in all the others. You stare at the ceiling, and let your mind wander, not toward the past, which is crowded and ugly, but towards something that could be. You picture yourself standing on a train platform, small case in hand, hair tucked under a sensible hat. You picture the air cold and dry, your breath turning to fog, your dress neat and unstained. You don't know what city you're in, Baton Rouge maybe, or St. Louis, some place with brick buildings and quiet streets, some place where no one knows your name, or worse, your reputation. In the dream, you get a job in a laundry or a sewing house. You work long hours, sure, but no one touches you without asking. No one calls you names in the street. No one demands a piece of you in exchange for rent. You rent a small room above a bakery that smells like bread at sunrise. You eat every day. You sleep through the night. Sometimes you even laugh. You know it's nonsense. You don't have money for a train ticket, let alone a new life. The coins in your stocking wouldn't cover a ride out of town on a mule cart, much less the fare to another state. You owe the madam, the butcher's boy, the pharmacist, and the girl down the hall who lent you a comb 2 weeks ago. You've never even seen snow, not really. Not outside of picture postcards sold on Canal Street. But still, it's nice to pretend, just for a while. You've read stories, not many, but enough. Girls who run away, change their names, become governesses or school teachers or wives of kind men with quiet eyes. They always seem to get found, though, dragged back by fathers or pimps or the past itself. And even when they stay gone, they spend the rest of their lives afraid that someone will recognize them, that someone will speak the name they buried. You're not sure if that's freedom or just another kind of cage. You tried to leave once years ago, packed everything you owned into a carpet bag and made it 3 blocks before someone grabbed your wrist and pulled you behind a butcher's stall, said he'd been watching you, that you were worth more than you thought, that he'd make sure you stayed safe. He wasn't lying, not exactly. You didn't get hit for weeks, but safety, you learned, has conditions, and eventually it costs more than it gives. You tell yourself you won't try again, not because you're weak, but because you're realistic. You don't have a plan. You don't have help. You don't even have shoes that would make it through the walk. Every time you picture leaving, you picture dying. In a ditch, in a stranger's arms, in a cell where they strip you down and take even your name. You're not the type that gets rescued, you're not the type that escapes. So instead, you dream. Not all the time, not often, just in moments like this when the city forgets to be cruel and the night lets you pretend there's something else. You dream of blankets that smell like lavender, of kitchens with pans that shine, of men who say thank you and mean it, of a version of yourself that doesn't flinch at kindness. And then the sound returns. A carriage clatters past the window. A baby cries 2 doors down. A man shouts something slurred and wet. The silence breaks like glass underfoot. You're back in your room, with your aching legs, an empty purse and bruises blooming purple beneath your corset. The moonlight's still there, but now it feels like an audience instead of a gift. You roll to your side and pull the blanket over your shoulder. It doesn't keep you warm, but it gives you something to hold. You close your eyes and try to picture snow again. Just snow. Cold, white, clean. You imagine the way it might taste on your tongue. Not like sweat, not like blood. Just water, crisp and light. The dream fades quickly, like all the others. But for a little while, it kept you company. And sometimes, that's enough. It doesn't happen all at once. It never does. No one wakes up and realizes they've been forgotten. It happens slowly, like wallpaper peeling at the edges, like a cough that starts in the morning and doesn't go away by night. You feel it in your bones first, not pain exactly, not the sharp, sudden kind, but a heaviness. Like your joints are tired of being joints. You bend slower, stand up slower, climb the stairs with both hands on the railing, just to be sure you make it without falling. The clients notice before you do. They always do. They look at you longer, but not in the way you want. They're measuring, judging, deciding. Some still knock, out of habit, or convenience or desperation. But they don't linger, and they don't pay as much. You hear them whisper outside your door sometimes, asking if the new girl is in, or if the pretty one from last week's still around. The madam shrugs and tells them you're busy. She stopped pushing your services. You know what that means. You've seen it happen before. You still work, you have to, but it's different now. Fewer men, longer stretches of nothing between them. You spend more time staring at the wall than anything else. You try to fill the hours, mending the same dress over and over, re-washing your hair even though the water's cold, counting the boards in the ceiling. You try not to listen too closely when the girls in the next rooms giggle. Their laughter is too loud, too young, too full of a hope they haven't yet realised is misplaced. Your cough has gotten worse. At first it was just in the mornings, dry and harmless. Then it started catching you off guard. During meals, during work, when you are half asleep and dreaming of things that don't exist anymore. It's in your chest now. You feel it when you breathe, like there's something loose inside you, something shaking. You try not to let anyone hear. You turn your face into your pillow when it comes on strong. You don't want the madam knowing. You don't want the doctor called. You've seen what they do with girls who sound like you. They're not offered help. They're offered distance. You've started hiding your earnings in a sock. Not the usual place, not under the mattress or behind the mirror. You don't trust those anymore. Too many girls have vanished with someone else's stash in their bodice. You keep yours rolled tight and tucked into a corner beneath a floorboard, behind a loose nail that only you know how to move. It's not much. A few coins, a broken brooch, a button from a dress you liked before it tore. But it's yours, and for now, that matters. You think more and more often about what will happen when you stop waking up. Not in a dramatic way, not like a threat, just a fact. One day, your body will give out. Maybe from the cough, maybe from something slower, maybe from nothing at all. Just too many nights, too many men, too many hours spent waiting for the next thing to break. You wonder who'll find you, if anyone will notice before the room starts to smell. If the madam will bother with a doctor, or if she'll just tell the new girl to strip the bed and move in. You picture it sometimes, not with fear, just curiosity. Will they bury you in a pauper's grave, or dump you in the river like you never mattered? Will your name be written down anywhere? Will anyone remember what colour your eyes were, or how you used to hum when you thought no one was listening? You doubt it. You're not being morbid, you're being honest. This place isn't built for legacy, it's built for turnover. The girls don't visit your room as much anymore. You used to get knocks in the afternoon, someone asking to borrow a comb or a corset hook, or just a moment to talk. Now it's mostly quiet. When they pass you in the hallway, they smile politely, but don't stop. You're becoming the cautionary tale, the one they reference in whispers. She used to be busy all the time. She's not looking well. I think she's sick. You hear them. You pretend you don't. You've stopped going to the clinic. You know what they'd say. Bed rest. Observation. Contagious. You don't want to end up locked in a back room, dosed with something that makes your skin crawl. You don't want your last days to smell like bleach and fear. So you stay where you are. You cough into cloth. You drink when you can. You rest more than you should. Sometimes when the fever creeps in, you sleep straight through the sound of men knocking down the hall. There's a kind of peace in being overlooked. No one asks anything of you. No one expects you to smile. You drift through the days in a fog of stillness, eating only when you remember, dressing only when necessary. Your dreams get strange, full of light and snow and faces you don't recognize. You wake up with your heart pounding and your hands cold. You tell yourself it's just the weather. Even though the weather doesn't change here, it never changes. Your reflection in the mirror grows softer, blurrier. Your cheeks are sunken, your eyes shadowed. The bruises take longer to fade now, and the small cuts don't close like they used to. Your hair falls out in clumps when you brush it, so you stop brushing. You pin it back and look away from the glass. You already know what you'll see. You keep a small scrap of paper under your pillow, your name written in your own hand, just in case. You don't know who you expect to find it, but it feels like something you should do. A reminder, proof, just in case no one else remembers. It happens quietly. No drama, no final words, no sudden gasp that signals the end. You don't even notice it at first. Your body's been failing for a while. The cough stronger, the fatigue heavier, the nights more fever than sleep. You spent the evening curled beneath the same blanket you've sweated through. For years, too weak to undress, too cold to move. You tried to drink something, but your hand shook too badly to hold the glass. You closed your eyes thinking you'd rest a bit. Maybe just an hour or two. You never opened them again. Maybe it was pneumonia. You've been wheezing for days, your breath catching in your chest like something was stuck there. Maybe it was something in the powder Pascal gave you, stronger than usual, something cut with just enough poison to finally quiet the noise. Maybe your body just gave out. No one knows. No one really tries to find out. The women in the house noticed you hadn't come downstairs, but they didn't ask. People disappear here all the time. Asking means getting involved. Getting involved means risk. And it takes 2 days before anyone opens your door. The madame's voice rings out in the hall, annoyed, calling your name like you've overslept on purpose. When there's no answer, she sends a girl up to check. The girl finds you curled on your side, arms tucked in like you were bracing against a chill that never lifted. You look asleep, except you're not warm, and you don't stir when she whispers your name. She doesn't scream. She just backs out of the room and closes the door behind her. By the time someone official arrives, your body's already stiff. There's no ceremony, no priest, no doctor to declare the time. Just a man from the coroner's office, with gloves that don't fit and eyes that never meet your face. He checks for breath, finds none, shrugs, jots something down in a ledger you'll never see. Female, mid-20s to early 30s, unclaimed. That's all you are now, an entry on a line between a smudge of ink and someone else's forgotten name. Your belongings are gone before your body is? The girls come in quiet, not with malice, just necessity. A dress here, a comb there, the bottle under the bed, the coins in the sock. They knew about it after all. They always do. Someone takes the perfume, the last few dabs of something floral and fading. Someone else takes the brooch, even though the clasp is broken. No one takes the paper with your name on it. It ends up crumpled behind the mattress. The landlord comes by just after noon. He doesn't look inside, just stands in the hallway, chewing a toothpick, muttering about missed rent. The madam tells him you're gone. He grunts. Then he tells her he'll need the room cleared by nightfall. There's another girl coming in from Baton Rouge who needs a place to sleep. The mattress isn't in bad shape, all things considered. He'll sell it to someone down the block who doesn't ask questions. Your blanket gets tossed in a pile for washing. No one remembers it was yours. They move your body in a wagon used for hauling refuse and broken furniture. A sheet covers your face, but it doesn't change anything. You're not escorted, you're not mourned, you're not even discussed. There's no obituary, no prayer, no notice pinned to the door. Just silence. The kind of silence that follows a shift change, that fills a space someone else is about to occupy. You're taken to a city lot where the grass grows patchy and the graves are marked with numbers instead of names. They dig a hole just wide enough and just deep enough. There's no headstone, no marker, no ceremony. You're lowered into the earth like a bundle, not a person. The dirt is cold, the sky's grey. A crow lands nearby but doesn't stay long. There's no one there to watch. The light in your old room flickers on again, 2 nights after you're buried. It glows weakly, behind thin curtains, casting the same pale lines across the floorboards, catching on the same warped mirror and cracked basin. There's laughter now, muffled through the walls, and footsteps pacing over the same groaning planks you used to tread, half asleep. The new girl has moved in. Her name is something short and sweet, the kind men like to say with their mouths full. She's younger than you were when you started here, and still soft around the edges. She smells like cheap roses. You catch it as she passes beneath the open window, the scent too bright, too eager, like someone trying too hard to pretend they're expensive. She hums when she walks, tapping her fingers on the stair rail as though the place doesn't frighten her yet. That won't last. The perfume will fade, the humming will stop, the tapping will slow. It always does. The house has a way of drawing the shine out of people, slow and silent, like a sponge soaking up whatever's left. Outside, the city doesn't miss a beat. Jazz drifts in from Basin Street, loose, brassy, full of life. Someone shouts across the road, laughing, glass clinks against stone, and a horse snorts as it passes by. The world turns, the girls get dressed, the clients line up. The district buzzes like nothing ever happened. Which, in its way, is true. You were here, now you're not. There are no headlines, no notices. No one rings a bell or writes a verse. No one pauses. One of the older girls, the one with the deep scar on her collarbone, lights a cigarette on the stoop and stares off down the street. For a second, it looks like she's thinking of you. Her eyes narrow, her mouth turns down, and her fingers fidget with the paper, like she might say something, but she doesn't. She exhales a long, practiced stream of smoke and flicks the ash away. She has work to do. Memories don't pay rent. The madame doesn't change anything. She doesn't repaint the room or wash the walls. She doesn't tell the new girl who used to sleep there. She doesn't need to. The stories aren't spoken, but they settle into the cracks and corners, into the way the door sticks just slightly when it closes, into the shape of the mattress, where your body wore it down night after night. The room remembers, even if no one else does. Sometimes the new girl glances at the mirror and tilts her head, like she sees something move that shouldn't. A shadow maybe, a flicker. She shakes it off. She'll stop looking soon, everyone does. You train yourself not to see too much in this place. There's a reason no one hangs pictures. Nothing here lasts long enough to frame. At Mahogany Hall, the music swells into something jubilant. A trumpet wails high above the rest, commanding attention. A woman's laugh follows, lilting and artificial. You used to hear those sounds and feel a sting of longing. Now they just wash past like river water, Cold, constant, full of things you'll never reach. The girls inside the grand houses never knew you. They never looked your way, but you looked at them sometimes, when you were bold enough. Imagined what their rooms felt like. Wondered if their sheets were ever clean. If they cried too. In the hallway outside your door, the floor creaks with the weight of another man. He pauses, knocks, then is let inside. The sound of shoes hitting the floor, of fabric rustling, of breath catching, echoes faintly through the wood. The rhythm hasn't changed, only the players. Your name fades fast. Maybe one of the girls says it once, quietly, while combing her hair. Maybe one of your old clients looks for you next week and is told you moved on. Maybe someone even lights a candle in the cathedral down the street. Not for you exactly, but for some lost soul who couldn't be saved. But none of that lasts. After a while, they forget how you laughed, how you walked, how you used to sit on the steps with your chin in your hand and your eyes squinting at the sun like you were trying to see something better. The girls who stay long enough start to blur together. They have the same tired expressions, the same bruises in the same places, the same perfume, reused from the same half-empty bottles. And when they're gone, their rooms fill again. The sheets are replaced, the belongings divided, the air shifts, but only slightly. No one notices. You are not special, not in the way stories like to pretend. You didn't make a name for yourself, or claw your way to freedom, or fall in love with someone who carried you away. You worked until your body gave out, and then you died in the same bed you'd lived in. You were tired, you were sick, you were human, and Storyville doesn't mourn the human. The district keeps breathing. It keeps grinding forward on aching joints and sour breath, on spilled liquor and wasted promises. The gas lights keep burning. The coins keep clinking. The girls keep opening doors, and the men, well, the men never stop coming. They come with hats in hand and hunger in their eyes, and they never ask what it costs. Not really, because they know someone else already paid. You were here, and now you're gone, and the district eats another. That brings us to the end of tonight's story, not of rebellion or redemption, but of a life worn thin by use and quietly discarded. If you're still awake, thank you for listening to a world where survival was routine, pain was predictable, and dreams were just softer kinds of hunger. The women of Storyville's cribs weren't legends. They weren't sinners or saints. They were bodies the city forgot how to see until it needed them again. If you'd like early access to more stories like this, ad-free audio, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. And if you feel like it, leave a comment about what vanished life you'd like to drift through next.